After my family went bankrupt, I married a sickly yet domineering CEO. Before the wedding, we laid down 3 ground rules. I made various requests regarding money and property, and he agreed to them all. He had only one request, that we have a married life in every sense of the word. Then he solemnly added, it might be a little frequent. I nodded. That's fine. A month later. Half a year ago, through the arrangements of our elders, I went on a blind date with a handsome but sickly man. His name was Patrick Gray. He came from a powerful family, with businesses scattered across the country. He stood over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a trim waist. His features were stunning. Every time his photo appeared in a financial magazine, it was instantly snatched up by fans. His only flaw? Poor health since childhood. A fortune teller had even once declared he wouldn't live past 30. Because of this, he remained single all his life. When we met, he had just turned 29. I did the math, he had only 6 months left. Across the table, Patrick Gray wore a tailored designer suit. His hair was slicked back neatly, revealing a pair of sharp, refined brows and eyes. The restaurant lights fell gently on him, casting an oil painting-like glow. I took a deep breath. Wow. He really was gorgeous. What a pity, only 6 months to live. Heaven always takes the good ones. But stepping back, he might die, sure. But his money would stay. What others saw as flaws, I saw as assets. Ever since my family's bankruptcy, I'd been working odd jobs to repay debt. I was dead broke. So I got straight to the point. Hi. Let's get married. His brow twitched slightly. He began studying me with quiet focus. The air around us fell silent. Oh no. Men hate overly forward women, right? I must have come off too aggressive. He's definitely going to reject me. I hesitated, debating whether to explain myself. Just then, he replied calmly, okay. My eyes widened. You really agreed? Yes, he said. Patrick Gray spoke like he was negotiating a deal, firm, precise. Let's establish our own agreement. You may state any conditions you want. Well, in that case, I won't hold back. First, no interfering in each other's lives after marriage. I won't meddle with yours, and you can't meddle with mine. Second, mutual loyalty throughout the marriage. That's the most important. Third, everything after the wedding is shared. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. After the third rule, my palms were slick with sweat. Houses, cars, money, everything would be shared. That way, when Patrick dies in 6 months, I'd receive a generous inheritance and escape this life of poverty. But Patrick had been running a company for years. He was no fool. He'd probably see right through my little scheme. Would he still agree? Fine, Patrick said. I let out a long sigh of relief. And, do you have any conditions? Patrick nodded slightly. Just one. I hope we have a married life, in every sense. His brow was stern, his tone serious, like he was signing a contract. He added cautiously, it might be a little frequent. I agreed. A man at death's door, his words must be sincere, right? Besides, I'd heard he had remained chaste for 29 years due to poor health. Totally understandable. 1 week later, Patrick and I got married. It was publicly announced nationwide, coverage everywhere, all arranged by Patrick. On the wedding day, while I was still getting my makeup done, a transfer came through, $5 million. The note said, pocket money. I counted the zeros, then burst into a smile. My mother, looking worn from our financial struggles, gazed at me with concern. Madison, are you really okay with this marriage? Don't sacrifice your happiness for us. Even my family could tell I was in it for the money. Mom, don't worry. I won't mistreat myself. It had been 2 years since the Lee family went bankrupt. I'd been working 5 jobs a day, scraping by. Half a year of marriage for a lifetime of luxury? Absolutely worth it. Besides, Patrick wasn't some ugly old man, he was young, handsome, and loaded. Sure, we didn't have love. But we had enough. After finishing my makeup, I happily stepped into the wedding car. Vows. Rings. A kiss. Then home. That night, in a room adorned with wedding decorations, Patrick's cold and distant demeanor cracked just a little. Our agreed-upon married life lasted until dawn. There wasn't the slightest hint that he'd die in 6 months. By the time I woke up the next evening, I was sore all over. Old bachelors really had no sense of restraint. I wandered through the luxurious downtown villa. The closet was stocked with rows of new designer dresses. Suddenly, my back stopped aching, and my legs no longer hurt. In a single night, I felt like I'd gone back to the days before our family lost everything. I started counting down the days, waiting to inherit. Patrick coughed. I thought, wait, is this how he dies? He sneezed. Oh no, maybe it's a cold? Every night, he'd wear me out until morning. I thought, there's no way he'll die from this, right? After all, he'd said a little frequent. But this? This was obsessive. He showed up more punctually than a 9 to 5 employee. Every single day. 6 months passed, and finally, Patrick got sick. It was late at night. He staggered home from work and collapsed onto the sofa. "I'm not feeling well," he muttered. I rushed to pour him water and touched his burning forehead. Startled, I asked, "Are you okay? Are you sick? Is it serious? Are you going to die?" Patrick opened his eyes, breath warm, and gently squeezed my hand. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll be fine. We'd been married for half a year now." I played the role of a gentle, attentive wife flawlessly. "You don't need to act tough," I said with a concerned face, while thinking you really don't look fine. Then I helped him up. "Let's go to the hospital." I sped my new Porsche like mad, worried he might die before we got there. A 30-minute drive took me 10. At the ER, I handed him over to the doctors. Trying to suppress my excitement, I asked about his condition. The doctor flipped through his chart, sighed, and said solemnly, "He caught a chill." I blinked. "What? A chill? So fast?" I froze, barely holding back laughter. Clapped a hand over my mouth and rushed out of the emergency room. The doctor looked after me, then pulled back a curtain and sighed, "President Gray, your wife really cares about you. Just a chill, and she's that upset." Patrick lowered his eyes and smiled faintly. His gaze softened. Meanwhile, outside the ER, I mourned his death for 3 seconds. Then cheerfully pulled out my phone and dialed a long-awaited number. "Hello? Rich Ladies Club? Please send me 10 male models. Tonight. Urgent." Finally. The clouds had parted. He was nearly gone. Still, he was my husband. I should give him a proper send-off. Just as I turned around with a smile, I saw Patrick, very much alive, standing right behind me. His pitch-black eyes locked onto mine, as if he wanted to kill me. Hey, honey. On the way home, Patrick's expression was thunderous. He'd taken his meds, so his symptoms eased. But his eyes and nose were still slightly red. Hard to say whether it was from the illness, or from sheer rage. I spoke up cautiously. "If I said, that was all a misunderstanding, would you believe me?" Patrick didn't respond. Crap. He was really mad this time. I hurried to coax him like I always did. "Honey, you heard wrong just now. I was just worried you weren't feeling well, so I wanted someone to come take care of you. My love for you is unwavering. Seeing you sick made me so upset I couldn't eat or sleep." Usually, lines like that could melt Patrick into a soft, helpless puddle. But this time, he frowned. And then it clicked. "So every time I get sick," he said coldly, "you're just sitting there wishing I'd die, so you can go find other men?" "And no way," I said weakly, my voice lacking any conviction. Who could resist the allure of cash and freedom? Becoming a rich widow? Not laughing out loud was already restraint. Patrick gave a breathy, angry laugh. "So, Madison, what do you like about those male models? Their long legs? Ups? Round butts?" He narrowed his eyes. "Do I not have those?" "You do. You have all of that. But, the wild ones still feel more exciting than the ones at home." I shrank back instinctively. There was no coaxing him this time. Clinging to the last sliver of hope, I asked pitifully, "If we got divorced, would you take away my house, my bags, and my Porsche?" Crack. I heard him clench his jaw so hard it sounded like thunder. His voice turned cold, like it had risen from hell itself. "You're still thinking about divorce?" The next second, I was dragged straight into the bedroom. Patrick, furious, yanked off his tie with a dark expression. "I was going to let you rest today," he growled. "But now, forget it." I immediately stepped back in panic. "What are you doing? Murder is illegal." Patrick caught me in one move and sneered. "As if I'd ever be willing to kill you. Honey, please, show me some mercy." In the dim room, my fingers clutched the sheets tightly. Tears streamed down my face from exhaustion. Patrick's shadowed eyes locked onto me. He snorted, "You can't even handle me, and you wanted 10 others? Madison, do you even care about me at all?" His voice dropped at the end of the sentence, laced with real hurt. I was so upset I wailed. "But we only got married through a blind date. There's no emotional foundation." Patrick took a deep breath. He calmed down visibly, then spoke in a composed tone, "Love is something you build. If you don't love me enough, it just means you haven't done enough." He reached for his phone. "I've told my assistant to cancel all my work for the week. We now have 7 days. Get ready." I wrapped myself in the blanket, hoarse and begging. "Hubby, please." But none of it moved Patrick's icy heart. It wasn't until the next day, around noon, when an emergency work call finally pulled him away. The moment he walked out the front door, I jumped out of bed, alive and well, and bolted from the villa. The first thing I said to my best friend at the cafe was, "I think I'm getting divorced." Heh. She nearly spat out her coffee. "You just got married 6 months ago. What happened? Did Patrick treat you badly?" Not exactly. I looked anxious. Last night, I called for some male models, and he caught me red-handed. I explained everything that had happened the night before, my face full of dread. At the time, I really thought he was going to die. You can't blame me. But now, he'll definitely divorce me. I might not even get a single cent from the inheritance. My best friend asked, "Do you really not like him? At all?" I shook my head. "No, I don't. I only married him because I heard he wouldn't live past 30. Back then, my family had just gone bankrupt, debts were piling up, and we could barely survive. Marrying him for his inheritance was the best plan I could come up with." Patrick not living past 30? That's basically carved in stone. Even the Gray family confirmed it. So for the past 6 months, I've catered to his every request. I just wanted to send him off peacefully, make myself feel a little less guilty. I sighed. Who would have thought, last night would completely backfire? My friend tapped her finger thoughtfully. But I think Patrick actually likes you. Think about it, look at everything he's bought you over the last 6 months. I shook my head again. Those were all part of our prenup. You don't understand, he was scary last night. He looked like he wanted to kill me. By now, the divorce agreement is probably already waiting for me at home. My Hermes bag, my Cartier bracelet, my Porsche, all of it, gone. Just thinking about it made my chest ache. Even my friend's words of comfort barely registered. We sat in the cafe all afternoon. As the sun dipped low, I finally gathered my courage. All right, time to face the music. If we're divorcing, then so be it. It's not the end of the world. I took a deep breath, stood up, and grabbed my bag. Just then, I noticed someone behind me holding a video camera. Curious, I glanced back. What are they filming? Oh, my friend said, looks like some finance show using this cafe as a backdrop. They were already rolling when I arrived. I tilted my head for a better look, and sure enough, I recognized the host. It was one of Patrick's favorite finance programs. If he saw this, he'd be thrilled. I instinctively reached for my phone to take a photo, then remembered, I was about to divorce him. Embarrassed, I tucked my phone away again. When I got home, I looked up at the luxurious villa and sighed again. Soon, I'd be leaving it behind for good. At the entrance, several luxury store managers I often shopped with were standing by the gate. A delivery van was parked nearby. My face paled. No way. A few days ago, I'd ordered a limited edition platinum handbag. Expensive as hell. And I had used Patrick's account to pay for it. And just my luck, it had arrived today. After last night's disaster, there was no way he'd pay for it now. I froze in place, flustered. One of the managers spotted me and ran over excitedly. "Miss Lee, the handbag you ordered just came in. We personally brought it to you today." I looked at the bag in her hands, stylish, unique, and stunning. My heart ached, but I still shook my head. "I'm sorry. I can't take it anymore." "Is there something wrong with the product? I can file feedback with the company for you." I forced a smile. "No, it's beautiful. I just don't have the money right now. I can't afford something so expensive." The manager blinked in surprise, then suddenly laughed. "Oh, Mrs. Lee, you're so funny. President Gray already paid the balance earlier today. This bag is yours." I froze. "Patrick? You saw him?" "No, we didn't. When we arrived and no one was home, we called President Gray's assistant. Once he heard the situation, he paid the balance immediately." She smiled warmly. "President Gray really adores you. You two have such a lovely relationship, truly enviable." I didn't hear anything else she said. All I could see was the bag in my hands, glittering like hope. Patrick paid the balance for me. Did that mean this marriage could still be saved? Maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't have to get divorced after all. It wasn't even 5 yet, and Patrick hadn't gotten off work. I had the manager move the deliveries into the house while I rushed upstairs to change into a new outfit. Grabbing the platinum handbag that had just arrived, I drove straight to Patrick's company. Patrick's company specialized in cutting-edge drone technology. Their products were distributed globally, and even the office building itself had a futuristic, high-tech design. It wasn't my first time visiting. After greeting the receptionist, I headed straight for the top floor. Just outside the CEO's office, I ran into Patrick's assistant. "How's Patrick today?" I asked. The assistant shook his head. "President Gray is very upset. He's already scolded several managers today. Just now, he said he was definitely going to teach you a lesson." "Are you sure you want to go in right now?" My legs trembled. But then I clenched my fists. Screw it. Sooner or later, I'll have to face him. At worst, I'll get yelled at. With that, I pushed open the door and walked in, ready to meet my doom. I said not to bother me. Patrick's voice rang out, thick with fury. But mid-sentence, he looked up and saw me. He paused. His gaze darkened, cold and cutting. Then he looked away and said nothing. The office was dead silent. The pressure in the room was suffocating. I summoned my courage, plastered on a bright smile, and walked over to hug him. "Hubby, I missed you so much." Patrick held the document in his hands, unmoving. His voice was hard as stone. "This morning, weren't you desperate for me to leave?" "That's because I was too tired," I said, feigning pitiful weakness. "Does your head still hurt? Did you take your meds? I was so worried about you." I reached up to touch his forehead, then pulled his hand and pressed it against my cheek, cuddling up to him like a spoiled cat. Finally, Patrick turned to look at me, though his voice remained cold. "Madison, don't think that just because you act like this, I'll forgive you. Like last night never happened." My body stiffened. "How could it not have happened?" I said softly. "This spot, and this one, they all still ache." I took his hand and placed it gently on my waist, my thigh, and my belly, giving him the saddest, most pitiful look I could muster. "It's true, you know. You were angry last night. You practically broke me." Patrick paused. Then, as if compelled, he began to massage those sore spots. But his mouth was still sharp. "Serves you right." I stayed quiet and obedient. After a few minutes, the tension on his face finally eased. He glanced at the bag in my hand. "You got your new purse?" he asked flatly, clearly offering a way out. I immediately threw my arms around him and kissed him on the cheek. "Yep. Thank you for paying the balance, hubby. I love it." Expressionless, he kneaded my waist lazily. Then added, "The manager said the other colors arrived too. If you like them, you can take them all." My eyes lit up. "Really? Hubby, you're the best." The assistant standing nearby was stunned. So this was what Patrick meant by teaching his wife a lesson? Patrick finished massaging me, pulled over a chair, and placed it beside him. "Sit here. Be good. Wait until I finish this document, then we'll go home together." I sat down obediently, then couldn't help pushing my luck. "Hubby, I really know I was wrong. Forgive me, okay? My waist honestly can't take another round." Patrick didn't respond right away. Then he said, "My mom called earlier. She wants us to go back for dinner." I breathed a sigh of relief and nodded quickly. "Great. I haven't seen Mom in ages." Patrick looked at me for a moment, unreadable. Then reached out to pinch my cheek gently before lowering his head back to work. I sat quietly beside him, sneaking glances at his profile. "Seems like everything's okay now." I couldn't help but feel secretly pleased. He was surprisingly easy to coax. Unable to resist the giddiness, I looked around the office, thinking of grabbing a magazine to pass the time. But before I could move, Patrick yanked my chair back beside him. "Don't wander off." I instantly sat back, hands folded, watching him work. After he finished, Patrick drove us back to the Gray family estate. His parents had long since retired and now lived peacefully in their old home. They often invited us over for meals. The elder Grays were kind people and treated me quite well. When we arrived, dinner wasn't quite ready yet. I rolled up my sleeves, planning to help in the kitchen. But Patrick suddenly pulled me away and took me up to the attic. "What are we doing here? Dinner's almost ready." "We're here to get something," he replied. "Something more important than food." Patrick stepped into the attic and opened a box on the floor. "These are all things I used when I was little. Mom and Dad were cleaning and asked if I wanted to keep any." I peeked inside. "Just old books and toys, nothing special. You're bringing all of this back?" "No," he said, rummaging around. After a while, he pulled out a small transparent box. "This is all I need." Inside was a colorful bowl-like object. It looked old and cracked, clearly handmade. It appeared to be molded from clay by a child, and inside were a few round, colored balls. I stared at it for a while. "What is that?" Patrick cradled the little dirty bowl with great care, his fingers gently brushing its edges. His expression softened. "Rice dumplings. Tangyuan. A bowl of tangyuan." "Huh? You used to play house when you were a kid?" But Patrick's mom had said he'd always been mature for his age. She claimed he never played around like normal kids. Hard to imagine him making something like this. When I looked up again, Patrick was watching me with clear anticipation. "Do you like it?" My eyes widened. Looking at the grimy thing in his hands, I really couldn't say I liked it. But after all the trouble I'd gone through to pacify him today, I could only nod along. "I do. It's kind of cute." He smiled faintly, clearly pleased. Then handed it to me. "It's yours." An hour later, we had finished dinner. I was sitting in Patrick's car with that dirty little bowl in my lap as we left the Gray family home. He seemed to be in a fantastic mood, even the corners of his lips lifted slightly. Had I known that just going home for dinner would cheer him up this much, I would have dragged him back ages ago. I glanced at his face, then down at the shimmering platinum handbag, and then at the dirty bowl of Tang Yuan. Suddenly, I thought, maybe my best friend was right. Patrick really had treated me quite well. All this time, I'd been focused on the idea that he would die soon. I hadn't dared to invest real emotions, afraid I'd get hurt when he was gone. But honestly, no matter how much I tried to keep my distance, Patrick had more good qualities than I could count. He was good-looking, gentle in personality, and incredibly generous. Throughout our marriage, he'd only gotten angry at me once, last night. But honestly, that wasn't his fault. It was mine. He was sick, and I'd had the nerve to call for male models. I had truly brought it on myself. The more I thought about it, the more guilty I felt. I finally made up my mind and spoke. Patrick, let's really try to live a good life together from now on. Patrick turned to look at me. Under his gaze, I steeled myself and continued. It was my fault before. From now on, I promise I'll. Before I could finish, I saw Patrick's eyes suddenly widen. Panic and fear surged into them. Watch out! Bang! A deafening crash. My body was flung from the seat by a massive impact, about to be hurled out. But Patrick lunged over from the driver's seat, shielding me with his body. Boom! The car skidded across the ground and slammed into a nearby utility pole before finally coming to a stop. By the time I came back to my senses, I was in a daze. I shook my still dizzy head and opened my eyes. Patrick was sprawled over me, unconscious. Behind him was the twisted, completely shattered windshield. If he hadn't shielded me, those shards of glass might have hit me directly in the face. I tried to move. But my body was locked in his tight embrace. It took everything I had to wiggle one hand free and shake him. Hubby, are you okay? I called out a few times. No response. Instead, I felt a slick, sticky sensation on my hand. When I lifted it, it was soaked in blood. My heart jumped into my throat. Suddenly, I remembered an old rumor. They said when Patrick was born, the Gray family invited a famous Taoist to read his fortune. The verdict? He wouldn't live past 30. And now, there was less than a week until Patrick's 30th birthday. Was the prophecy really coming true? I used to pray for Patrick to die, so I could inherit his wealth and live a carefree life. But now that it was happening right before my eyes, I was terrified. I shook his body desperately, trying to wake him. Patrick, don't scare me like this. I didn't really want you to die. I hadn't even noticed I was crying, until my voice broke with sobs. And once I realized it, I cried even harder. Patrick, if you die, what am I supposed to do? Just then, I heard the voices of the police outside. Quick! Someone's trapped, get them out first. The accident had happened so suddenly. In no time, the twisted door was pried open. A few nurses rushed over and helped pull Patrick off of me. He was loaded onto the ambulance. Wrapped in a thermal blanket, I didn't even think twice. I dashed after them. Let me on the ambulance. I'm going with him. A nurse turned and asked, what's your relationship to the patient? I looked at Patrick lying unconscious on the stretcher and replied without hesitation, I'm his wife. The ambulance sped toward the hospital. Inside, the nurse began connecting tubes and wires to Patrick's body, her hands swift and steady. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor filled the space. But I didn't feel any reassurance, only rising fear. Because I'd seen his back. It was torn and mangled beyond recognition. Bloody, broken, no intact skin left. Those wounds, they were supposed to be mine. The car had crashed into us from the right side, right where I had been sitting in the passenger seat. I should have been the one most seriously hurt. But apart from a few scrapes, I didn't have a single major injury. Looking at Patrick's bloodied body, I reached out and clutched his hand, my heart drowning in guilt and pain. Patrick, I did want your inheritance. But I never wanted you to actually die. When we arrived at the hospital, Patrick was rushed into the operating room. I stood outside, staring anxiously at the glowing red, in surgery sign, panic clawing at my chest. What if the prophecy really came true? What if Patrick actually died? Tears streamed down my face, hitting the floor with dull splashes. I was starting to regret everything. Half an hour later, Patrick's parents arrived at the hospital in a rush. When they found out he was still in critical condition, worry clouded their faces. What happened? How did this accident happen so suddenly? I was overwhelmed with guilt and bowed deeply. The officer said the other driver was drunk and going the wrong way. That's why we were hit. I lowered my voice. It's my fault. Patrick was hurt because he shielded me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been this badly injured. Patrick's mother sighed and gently patted my shoulder. This isn't your fault. He did it to protect you, it was his choice. I shook my head. I didn't dare confess that for the past 6 months, I'd been hoping he would die. Maybe I'd wished it too often. Maybe it came true. Patrick's surgery lasted 4 full hours. I waited outside for all 4, never leaving. As soon as he was wheeled out, I rushed over. There were glass fragments embedded in his back, the doctor explained. We had to take our time. Luckily, aside from the external wounds, we didn't find any other complications. The injuries have been treated for now, but we'll need to keep monitoring his condition. I finally let out a breath of relief. Looking down at Patrick's sleeping face, still pale, but cleaned of all blood, his breathing was steady, and his heartbeat strong. He was alive. Thank God. For the first time in 6 months, I truly felt grateful he was still with me. Patrick's injuries weren't fatal, but they weren't minor either. He didn't wake until the next afternoon. At the time, I was holding his head, adjusting its angle. Since the injuries were on his back, he could only lie on his stomach. The doctor had instructed me to help him shift positions regularly, to avoid muscle strain or facial distortion. I helped him turn every 30 minutes. I couldn't let that handsome face get ruined. Patrick slowly opened his eyes. His voice was hoarse. Madison, what are you doing? You're awake. I cried out in surprise and quickly hugged his arm. Hubby, I was so worried about you. I'm so glad you're awake. I didn't know what I'd do if. In the past, whenever I acted clingy to Patrick, there was always a bit of pretense in it. But this time, it was completely real. I was genuinely scared. Even my eyes turned red. I hadn't gone home last night. I'd stayed at the hospital, caring for him without sleeping. I thought about so many things. And the more I thought, the more upset I became. Patrick looked at me, startled. Then, after a moment, his gaze softened. Sorry for making you worry. He gave me a light hug and asked, Are you hurt? I raised my right hand to show the bandaged gauze. Just a little scratch. Even the nurse said, Hubby, you protected me so well. You're amazing. I showered him with sweet words like a waterfall, not holding back at all. Patrick looked a bit flustered. His face flushed. Now you realize how good I am, he muttered. I nodded earnestly and hugged him tighter. You've always been good to me. I was just too blind to see it. But now I know. Hubby, I love you so much. Patrick paused, eyes flickering with emotion. Then he turned his face away and muttered, You just like saying pretty words to fool me. When I was unconscious, didn't you call on a few other men behind my back? I quickly shook my head and raised my hand in a vow. No, absolutely not. I've been taking care of you all day. I haven't left your side for a single second. You do have a conscience, Patrick replied gently. Seeing my concern, he added reassuringly, Don't worry. These injuries look scary, but they're not serious. I'll recover soon. I nodded, still holding tightly onto his hand. Honey, when you leapt over to shield me yesterday, I was scared to death. Don't do that again. You have to take care of yourself first. Remember what that fortune teller once said? This time you got lucky. Next time, it might not be the same. Since I'd already decided to spend my life with Patrick, I wasn't ready to become a widow so young. Patrick, who had always followed my every word, suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace and whispered, No. I'll still protect you next time. For a whole week after Patrick woke up, he remained in the hospital recovering. Aside from a quick trip home to grab some clothes, I basically moved into the hospital with him, cooking, cleaning, and tending to his every need. With the knot in our hearts finally untied, our days were sweet and full of affection. After snuggling up to Patrick and letting him help fix my hair, I gave him a gentle reminder, I'm just going home for a quick shower. I'll be right back. Wait for me so we can eat together, okay? Patrick smiled and nodded. Okay. I'll wait. Satisfied, I picked up my things and was about to head out when I suddenly remembered something. I ran back over to him, puckered my lips, and said, Kiss kiss. Patrick's smile deepened. He leaned in and gave me the softest butterfly kiss on my lips. Here's your kiss. Blushing furiously, I grabbed my bag and dashed out of the room. I wasn't just going home to shower. I also planned to pack up some of his favorite books, anything that might help ease his boredom in the hospital. But lately, Patrick had seemed in such a good mood every day, it didn't even look like he found the hospital boring. Oh well. I showered, packed the books into my bag, and drove straight back to the hospital. I had just arrived at the entrance when my phone rang. It was my best friend, sounding panicked. Madison, bad news. The conversation we had at the cafe that day, it was recorded by the show. They aired the whole thing. You can hear every word clearly. It's on TV right now. I froze. My mind raced back to that morning when we'd been venting at the cafe. My face turned pale. No way. That was Patrick's favorite finance show. He never missed a single episode. I absolutely couldn't let him hear those words. I bolted down the hallway toward his room. I flung the door open. And immediately heard my voice and my friend's, coming from the TV. At the time, I really thought he was going to die. It's not my fault. Now he's definitely going to divorce me. I probably won't even get a share of the assets. You seriously don't like him at all? Nope. Not one bit. I married him for the inheritance. Back then, people said he wouldn't live past 30. My family had just gone bankrupt, we were drowning in debt. This was the best plan I could come up with. On screen, the show host was interviewing an economist. During their pauses, snippets of our conversation played loud and clear. Other than the sound from the television, the hospital room was dead silent. Patrick, dressed in his hospital gown, sat on the bed holding the remote. The smile on his face was gone. I trembled, fear creeping in. In a soft voice, I asked, "Honey? Can I explain?" Patrick didn't look at me. His voice sounded hollow. "So that's why you married me? No wonder you looked so happy the last time I was sick and went to the hospital." "Don't say that. Be careful, your wounds." He interrupted, expressionless. "You've been hoping I'd die all along, haven't you? So you could inherit everything?" "No. I mean, I instinctively denied it, but thinking of all that I'd done before, guilt washed over me. Okay, fine. I did think that way before. But later, I truly fell for you. I was wrong, okay?" I walked over and tried to hook my arm around his like I always did when I wanted to make him smile. Usually, that would do the trick. Patrick would forgive me and pull me into his arms. But this time, he didn't move. He just turned and stared at me. "Madison," he said, "do you love me, or just my money?" I bit my lip. "Both." "You're seriously saying that? Are you trying to piss me off?" "You're the one who asked. If I lie, you won't believe me. But when I tell the truth, you hate it." Seeing how pale he looked from anger, my heart ached. I gently tried to calm him down. Okay, don't get worked up. You'll hurt yourself. Your injuries haven't healed yet. I know you don't want to see me right now. I'll come back later, alright?" He said nothing. I sighed and pulled my hand back. It was over. I couldn't sweet-talk my way out of this one. If this had happened a week ago, I would have just walked away and never looked back. But now, I really couldn't bear to leave him. As soon as I stepped out of the room, my phone rang again. It was my mom. "Madison, I saw what you said on that show. I'm so sorry." Her voice broke down into sobs. "If the hospital hadn't gone bankrupt and left us in debt, you wouldn't have had to marry Patrick like that. I didn't know you were suffering so much." "Mom, I wasn't suffering. Patrick treats me really well. I really like him now. You don't have to lie to me, Madison. I don't want you to suffer anymore. Just get a divorce, okay?" "No," I blurted without thinking. But she misunderstood my reaction. "It's okay. After the divorce, we'll repay the debt ourselves. We don't need his money." "It's not about the money. I really like Patrick. I don't want to divorce him." Really? She paused, then asked anxiously, "What about him? After hearing what you said on that show, will he still treat you like before?" I thought of Patrick's blank expression and silence earlier. My heart wavered, then quickly hardened with resolve. He will. He has to. We're already married, he can't take it back now. I clenched my fists and turned to head back, determined to cling to him no matter what. But just as I turned around, I saw Patrick's mom standing not far away. I froze in shock. "Mom, you heard everything I just said?" Patrick's mom nodded. She was always warm and gentle. In the 6 months since the wedding, we'd never had a conflict. She'd been a perfect mother-in-law. She looked at me and said slowly, "Actually, when Patrick first told us he wanted to marry you, we were against it. You hadn't known each other long. And your requests in the prenup were very telling. But Patrick insisted. He said, even if you only wanted his money, it didn't matter. Because what he wanted was you." I gave an awkward laugh. Was I that obvious? If he already knew, then why was he so mad? Patrick's mom gave me a look inside. "Because you didn't just want his money, you were waiting for him to die." I lowered my head in shame. "That wasn't just me? Everyone said that." She sighed again. "It's our fault. Patrick was sick a lot as a child. Nothing helped, not even top doctors. Finally, a Taoist priest told us his fate was being targeted and that we needed to spread a rumor, Patrick wouldn't live past 30. The more people who believed it, the better. Only then, he said, would Patrick be safe. And so, we did. After that, Patrick's health began to improve. And he grew up safe and sound. Is that even possible? At that time, Patrick had already been in the ICU for 3 months. We had no choice, we could only try whatever might work, no matter how unlikely." Patrick's mom recalled the situation, then turned to me and added, "Oh, and the hospital he stayed in back then was your family's old hospital. If not for those doctors there, he wouldn't have survived." "My family's hospital?" I blinked, confused, then suddenly remembered something. I rummaged through my bag and pulled out a small, crushed bowl, made from clay, holding a few squished glutinous rice balls. Madison. My eyes flew wide open as I stared at the object in my hand. Could this be the Tangyuan I gave Patrick? I remembered how, when I was young, my parents were always busy with work and often left me to play in the hospital courtyard. I made so many friends during that time, doctors, nurses, patients, even other patients' families. Sometimes a group of kids would play house, pretending to be married couples. Wait a minute, the boy who always played husband with me, what was his name again? I froze. Looking down at the bowl again, my mind raced. No way, Patrick's mom was still talking about his childhood, but I interrupted her. Mom, I'm going to see Patrick. Don't worry, I don't want him to die anymore. I want him to live a long, long life. Saying that, I dashed toward the hospital room. Just as I reached the door, I saw Patrick's assistant standing outside. What are you doing here? I asked. He glanced at me seriously. President Gray just called on the lawyer. I think they're talking about a divorce. I shoved open the door. Sure enough, the lawyer, the same one who'd helped us with our prenuptial agreement, was standing beside the bed, typing something into his laptop as Patrick spoke. Panicking, I rushed over and grabbed Patrick's hand. Patrick, I'll tell you everything. When we first got married, yes, I was after your inheritance. And yes, those words on the TV show were mine, but that was all in the past. Now, I truly like you. Patrick stared at me for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Instead of relief, I panicked even more. I hurriedly pulled out the crushed clay bowl. I'm serious. This bowl, I remember it now. I gave it to you when we were kids, didn't I? I told you I wanted to marry you someday. Patrick turned his eyes away, looking a bit embarrassed. That was just a game. I don't care. I protested. We're already married now, and I'm not getting divorced. Never. At that, Patrick's expression changed. He grabbed my face, his voice low and intense. Divorce? You're still thinking about divorce? Dream on. I was stunned. Didn't you call the lawyer here to divorce me? The lawyer standing nearby gave a small smile and clarified, Mrs. Lee, you misunderstood. President Gray called me to arrange a property transfer. Property transfer? I repeated. To whom? To you, Patrick said flatly. You like money, right? I'll give it to you, give you a lot of it. So you can only like me. As for divorce, Madison, don't even think about it. We're about to celebrate our porcelain wedding anniversary. Porcelain anniversary? That's 20 years of marriage, I blinked. But we've only been married for 6 months. Wait, is he counting from when we played house as kids? Suddenly, it all clicked. My cheeks flushed. Didn't you say that was just a game? Patrick muttered, it was a game. But then, it wasn't. He patted the space beside him. Everything here is for you. Sit and listen. I smiled and sat down obediently, listening as Patrick dictated the terms of the property agreement to the lawyer. At first, I felt happy. But as he went on, I began to feel a little overwhelmed. Honey, aren't you giving me too much? Patrick answered simply, no. I was going to give it to you anyway. After the lawyer left, I clung to Patrick, reluctant to let go. I felt like I was falling for him all over again. He gently placed a hand on my waist and said, Madison, you're pressing on my back wound. Oh. I quickly shifted my arms to avoid the injury, but still refused to release him. What about now? Much better. I looked up at his profile, heart fluttering. It felt like a little bird had flown into my chest, flapping its wings with joy and excitement. Patrick, I whispered, I realized just how much you love me. You even kept that silly little bowl I gave you as a kid. Why didn't you tell me earlier? We could have avoided so many misunderstandings. It's not a silly bowl, he corrected me softly. It's Tangyuan. It's Madison. Then he added, I only want you to love me for real, not out of gratitude. I nodded quickly. Of course. My husband has such upright values. Then a thought hit me. But Patrick, now that I think about it, I used to love playing house when I was little. I think I married quite a few boys. Aren't you worried they'll all come find me? Patrick didn't even flinch. There weren't any others, he replied. Only me. He shifted to a more comfortable position and pulled me into his arms, eyes fluttering shut for a nap. Casually, he added, every wedding you've had, make-believe or real, since childhood, has only ever been with me. Looking at him sleeping so soundly beside me, I couldn't help but smile. Turns out, I've been married to Patrick since I was a kid. And now? I'm never letting him go. Not in games, not in real life, he's mine. Forever.